The argument was familiar, sharp, worn smooth from overuse. Ben and Sarah stood in their new kitchen, voices echoing off unpacked boxes. They'd moved here to escape the city, to start over. Then, a sound interrupted them. A soft, subterranean thump, dull, rhythmic, rising from the house's foundations. Their words died. They froze, listening. The sound was deep, patient. Thump, pause, thump. It felt ancient, as if it had always been there, waiting. The argument shrank, replaced by a new shared dread. It was organic, deliberate, something heavy striking earth or wood below. The house, meant to be a sanctuary, suddenly felt like a cage. Isolated, miles from neighbors, surrounded by dense forest, they were truly alone. It didn't demand their attention. It simply took it. Ben and Sarah looked at each other, anger replaced by a single unspoken question. They were united against something unknown, lurking in the darkness beneath their feet. And it was only the beginning. Horror isn't always a scream. Sometimes it's a rhythm. The thump from below was no jump scare. It was a patient, methodical pulse. It planted unease, growing slowly, inexorably. The sound's power was in its consistency, a slow, deliberate beat, too heavy to be human. It suggested intelligence, purpose. This was not random. Something was awake. Something was busy. The slow rhythm worked on a primal level, creating sustained tension. Our minds raced to fill in the blanks. What could make such a noise? The story gave no answers, letting imagination drive the fear. The beat became a countdown, but to what? We only knew we didn't want it to reach zero. This horror burrowed deep, bypassing startle for psychological dread. A jump scare is a firework. This was a rising tide. The thumping became part of the environment, a constant reminder of the unseen threat. It was more than a sound, it was a presence. The house breathing, slow and cold. The sound manipulated Ben and Sarah, drawing them in. They had to investigate, compelled toward what they should have fled. This is slow burn horror. Terror you walk toward, step by hesitant step. The rhythmic thumping was the first note in a symphony of dread. It promised a terrifying crescendo yet to come. The house was alive with it, and Ben and Sarah were caught in its rhythm. The real horror had only just begun. Their search led to a forgotten corner of the kitchen. Beneath a threadbare rug, they found a trapdoor. Dark wood, rusted iron, cold to the touch. The air around it was unnaturally chilled. The house was old, but this door felt ancient, sealed for a reason. The thumping stopped. Silence pressed in, as if something below was listening. Ben and Sarah stood over the door, dread and curiosity warring inside them. Every instinct screamed to leave it alone, but the mystery was too strong. With a reluctant nod, Ben gripped the iron ring. Together they pulled. The door groaned, heavy and reluctant. A wave of cold, fetid air washed over them. Damp earth, decay, something sickly sweet. They had opened the door. The darkness below waited, patient and hungry. The house seemed to hold its breath. They'd crossed a threshold, invited into the unknown. The trapdoor was a scar in the floor, a wound reopened. Curiosity had won. The descent was inevitable. The darkness below was ready, and so were they, whether they knew it or not. The horror of the root cellar attacked the senses first. The smell hit them, damp earth, rot, a cloying sweetness, and the metallic tang of old blood. The air was heavy, wet, unnaturally cold, leaching warmth from their skin. Peering into the darkness, the atmosphere pressed up at them, oppressive and invasive. The iron ring was slick, the wooden steps coated in a slimy film. The walls, barely visible in flashlight glow, were covered in fibrous material, roots, and something disturbingly like hair. Touching anything felt like a violation, a connection to the wrongness of the place. Even the silence was predatory, filled with a low hum of dread. Every drip, every scuttle in the dark was amplified. The absence of the thump made the quiet more menacing. The cellar was a sensory trap, overwhelming and disorienting. Horror was in the air, the touch, the smell, long before anything was seen. The darkness was alive with threat. The cellar was waiting for them, and they could feel it in every breath. The descent had truly begun. The descent was psychological as much as physical. Fear curdled back into anger and blame. The darkness didn't unite Ben and Sarah, it isolated them, feeding on their resentment. Ben's fear became frustration, Sarah's became accusation. Their whispered fight resumed, swallowed by the listening dark. The cellar fed on their negativity, growing colder, the shadows pressing closer. Their conflict became a beacon, drawing the lurking presence near. The evil didn't need to act, it let them tear each other apart. The cellar reflected their inner darkness, amplifying it. They weren't just victims, they were participants in the ritual. Their anger was the catalyst. The monster was listening, and it was almost ready. Deeper in, the flashlight revealed horrors and glimpses. The walls weren't stone, they were dense, pale roots, pulsing with a slow rhythm. The cellar wasn't built, it was grown. Faces appeared in the roots. At first tricks of the light, then unmistakably deliberate. Stretched, distorted, trapped in silent agony, the faces were part of the structure. Not carvings, but inclusions. Previous victims perhaps, or spirits. The story never explains, letting fear fill the gaps. The walls were a living tomb, absorbing all that fell into its grasp. The environment was alive, malevolent, shifting at the edge of sight. Vines snaked across the floor, threatening to trip and hold. The cellar was a living labyrinth, closing in. The monster's first form was the place itself. Ben and Sarah were inside it now. The house was feeding, the walls watched, and escape was slipping away. The creature emerged, not with a roar, but as a shadow unfolding from the darkest corner. It was tall, thin, limbs too long, joints bending wrong. Its form was indistinct, more absence than substance, absorbing light. It moved with slow, deliberate grace. No aggression, just patient observation. Its stillness was more terrifying than any attack. We saw only glimpses, spindly fingers of woven roots, a face with no features. The monster was a reflection of our own fears, built by imagination. Its presence confirmed the dread that had been building. It was the embodiment of wrongness, not a beast to fight, but a presence to endure. The terror was in what it represented, silent, intelligent evil, waiting in the dark. Ben and Sarah were trapped in its world, and it was in no hurry. The twist was a horrifying clarification. The creature extended a root-like finger, not at them, but at the space between them. Sarah understood. The monster was a gardener, their conflict the soil. It didn't hunt, it cultivated. Their anger, their resentment was the bait. The evil didn't chase people. It grew them. The faces in the walls were a previous harvest, agony enriching the soil. The monster was not entirely external, it was something they'd helped create. Their inability to communicate made them fertile ground. The story became a parable about the destructive power of unresolved conflict. The greatest demons are the ones we carry inside, calling out to the darkness. The cycle was ancient, unending. Ben and Sarah just the latest crop. The gardener's patience made sense. It waited for the perfect moment to reap. The thumping was not a threat, but the sound of the gardener at work. The house, the cellar, the forest, all part of the farm. The real horror was how easily they'd been cultivated. The harvest was ready, and the gardener was always waiting. The story ends not with a scream, but with silence. Sarah escapes. Ben does not. Her escape is no victory, it's a sentence. The focus is on Sarah, alone, haunted by what happened and her role in it. The real horror is the knowledge she carries. Their fight was the bait. The creature's fate, Ben's fate, left ambiguous, the fear lingers. The most terrifying monsters are the ones we don't understand. The gardener is a force of nature, patient, indifferent. The final image, the silent forest, the unchanged house. The world moves on, indifferent to their suffering. The cosmic horror is not that evil exists, but that the universe does not care. The cycle continues, ancient and unending. The true monster is the dread it leaves behind, the fear of what we cultivate with our own negativity. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The silence after the scream is the most terrifying part. In that silence, fear takes root. growing in the dark corners of our minds, and the story is never truly over.